Welcome back. In this video we will learn about the most important topic of object-oriented programming and the Java programming is class and objects. A class is a prototype, idea and a blueprint of creating an object. An object is an instance of a class. For example, every human being, every person, every animal is an object in this concept. For example, I have a mobile, it's an object. And what's the class of this mobile will be? Class will consist of two parts, data members and the behavior. In other words, the properties and the behavior of that particular object, because it's the design of that object. So if my object is my cell phone, then its class will contain like how much RAM it has, what's its screen size, how much resolution does its display has, things like that, and the functions of it will be called methods. And those functions will be like I can make a phone call, I can record video, I can take pictures. So these are called the behaviors of an object. These will be designed inside a class. So in other words, class is a design of the object and object is the realization of that class. So now again study this definition. You will understand that a class is a prototype, idea and blueprint for creating objects. An object is an instance of a class. For example, in Java we define classes in turn are used to create objects. Class has constructor for creating objects. Don't worry if you don't understand some of these concepts. I will demonstrate these each and every concept and you will understand better. A class has some properties and methods. And an object is an instance of a class and the instance properties belongs to that belongs to that object. Here is a typical example of a class that contains 3 data members and 4 behaviors or 4 methods. A class is a definition of objects with the same properties and the same methods. So it's actually a design of a bicycle. Bicycle is an object and it could be designed in a class like this. Alright. So a class could be more specific, like an account is a generic thing, but a deposit account is specific or specialized version of that particular account, and current account is also specific. So deposit account is an account and current account is an account. Alright. Almost everything in the world can be represented as an object: a flower, a tree, an animal, a student, a professor. An object is an instance of class. We have already studied this. An object is a computational entity that encapsulates some state, is able to perform actions or methods on the state, communicates with others via message passing. An object can communicate with other objects via message passing. So here X is a car and it has these properties are data members and these are the methods that it has. A class could be represented as hour, minute, and these two are the data members, and the one add minutes is a method of it. And we can create multiple objects from the same class. We have created in time object from it. Also we can create out time object from it. Means that we can create unlimited objects from a class. Each copy of an object from a particular class is called an instance of a class. The act of creating a new instance of a class is called instantiation. Instantiation, really difficult to pronounce. An object is a class when it comes to alive. Animal is a class. Snowball the cat is an object. Vehicle is a class. My neighbor's BMW is an object. So this was all about class and object. Now we will discuss how we can create these classes and objects in our Java program. So let me shift to my compiler here. So first of all, I'm going to design a new class here. So it could be designed, first keyword it has is class, or we can give it an access modifier, means that where this class could be accessed. So that could be defined as public or private or protected. Public will be accessible anywhere in the project, private will be accessible only in that particular package, and protected is something we will cover in the next videos when we will study inheritance. Alright, so I'm going to create a public class and its name is going to be, for example, a student. A student is an object, so I'm going to design a student. For that I need student name, that could be string, and the other thing I need is, for example, student CNIC, student roll number. So roll number could be an integer as well as could be a string, so I'm going to take it as a string. So the next I can take is GPA, and I can take GPA in floating point numbers. So these are all the data members of a class. Now I'm going to create the behavior of a student. A student can study, can play, and can do lots of things, so I am going to define them. I'm going to define them. First of all, I'm going to define public. Again, the methods also have access modifiers, and the other thing methods have is this return type. I will discuss this shortly. Public void study, for example, I want to create a function named study. And remember another thing, whenever you are going to define a class, its first letter should be in capital, and whenever you are going to define a function, its first letter should be in small letters. And if it contains two words like study books, then the second word will word's first letter should be in caps. This is actually the camel case notation which we follow in Java. So for example, study books, I'm going to write a function here, system.out.println student is studying. For example, I'm going to name add name of the student and going to say is studying. Alright, in the next method I'm going to get the GPA of the student, for example, and GPA is in float, so whenever I have to make its return type float, because I want to return some value of type float. Get GPA. So this function would be something like this, and it will return something, and that would be the GPA of student. So now I'm going to create an object of this class inside my static void main. So I can do this the same way we have done before. Student is equal to new student. So here I'm creating the object of student. This should be the same, that is the name of the class, and then the name of the object could be anything, and the new object is necessary to assign the memory will be equal to the memory the string variable. One string variable contains text, and all of these variables text will be the memory. And student, this one, student should be the same one that has the this class name. This should also be same as the class name, and with these braces, this is actually a constructor call. We haven't defined any constructor yet, but if we don't define a constructor, it is by default exist it by default exists. That is which is provided us with the object class, a class that is a global class, or a global object which has certain methods that we can use. For example, this void main is coming from our global class. All right, so we have created an object. We can assign its variable some values. For example, student.name is equal to, for example, rob student dot the object name dot the variable cnic is equal to something like this, and student dot gpa is equal to 3.2 in floating. Sorry. So here I'm going to run a function that is called student dot get gpa. Alright, now I'm going to execute this function. It's saying that class student is public, should be declared in a file named student.java. So let me look at the project. Actually, this ID has limited features, so let me make it private for now. I will show you in Android Studio how you can make public classes. Private not allowed here. I'm not going to give any access modifier. It just run, and it returned actually anything. We haven't print that value, the value it returned, so we need to actually print that particular value. So execute again. It's the same GPA that we have provided it. We can also check that if student is studying or not. Symbol could not be found. I think I've written something wrong. What's that? Oh, alright. I've called just the method. I haven't used here the dot operator. Student dot study books. Oh yes, we don't need to actually print this. because we have already written the print statement inside our study books function. So it is actually printing here Rob is studying. So it has taken this name also, and also attached is studying with that. Now I'm going to tell you about very important concept, that is constructor. Constructor is a kind of function that we use to assign values to our data members. For example, we have 4 data members. We can use a constructor like this. The constructor name has the same name as does the class has, student, and like this, and it is going to take 4 arguments: string name, string CNIC, string roll number, float GPA, because it has to fill up these 4 values. In order to differentiate between this name and this name, we use this operator. This dot name is equal to name. What this does is, as we have created an object of this class, so whenever this constructor is called, this constructor is called by this object, and this object belongs to this class. So this operator, this one, will refer to this object, and dot name means any data variable inside this class that has the whose name is equal to this name. Alright, and we can do the same for others. This operator actually refers to its calling object. So now I can create this object like this. I can pass it Rob here, and I can pass it CNIC here, for example, something like this, and I can pass it roll number, and again I can pass it the GPA. I don't need to do this stuff here, and I can access the same values in the same manner, and you can see that this is now 3.4 GPA. So this was the constructor concept. But keep one thing in mind, that whenever you create a user, this is actually called user defined constructor. Whenever you create a user defined constructor, we have to create the default constructor, and default constructor is something like this, that don't contains any values. So whenever we create its object like this, this will call this constructor, and it is not going to assign any values. So what is the purpose of this then? We will see in the next coming videos when we'll study inheritance. This was almost all about the classes and objects, and I should tell you one thing, that this is the most important concept in object oriented programming. Please do practice of it, and as much as you practice this concept will be better. And this concept is used in each and every programming language, that is object oriented programming language, other than the procedural languages that are C and C++. C++ also supports object oriented programming, but C is a procedural language. So do practice of it. That's it for this video. See you in the next one.